Namaste, welcome, and thanks for joining me today for a postural alignment refresh with some experiential anatomy. So I have my friend here, my skeleton, to help us. And we're going to look at the pelvis. So the pelvis, we know, is made of the two hip bones and the sacrum. So each hip bone here meets together in the front with this cartilaginous tissue in the middle where they join. And we call this the pubic bone. It's really the pubic bones. So you can see the angle that the pubic bone is faced at when the pelvis is aligned in its most upright position, right? So if I had a little laser light attached here, it would shine at the floor. And we're going to experiment with that in a moment, sitting in the chair. And I also want you to notice that the sacrum is part of the spine that the two hip bones attach to, where we have these two joints. And you can see that from the back, where the hip bones join the sacrum. The sacrum is part of the spine. It is also part of the pelvis. So as part of the spine, when we move at the hips, the hip bones move, and therefore the spine moves. So the entire spine responds to movements that we do in the hips. And then I just want you to see how the hip bone on this part comes down and becomes a sitting bone, right? So we have these two ischial tuberosities. They are what we call the sitting bones. And when we kind of collapse down into a chair, we're often sitting on the back of them and our tailbone, which is hanging from the sacrum. When we're sitting upright with the pelvis in this upright position, we are sitting on this bottom part of the sitting bones. So I just want you to have this anatomy in your mind, these bony landmarks, because we're going to take it to the chair here and experiment with that. So come to a chair, and for right now, I'm just finding a nice hard chair so that I can feel my sitting bones. So if you rock from side to side, you can feel that there's something very firm in there that's holding you, one side and the other. Those are your sitting bones. Typically, when we sit down in a chair, or if we're tired or we're just we really need to lay down, but we're taking a moment to sit down, we often just drop back into our chair like this. So right now, my pelvis is laying down. It's trying to lay down, and it's being stopped by this chair back, holding my back up. So I'm resting with my tailbone underneath me and on the back of those sitting bones. So I'm going to bring the pelvis upright so that I'm now on the bottom of those sitting bones. I hope you do this with me. And we often orient, if you do classes with me, I often orient you to position your pelvis by exploring the shape of the sitting bones against the chair, which I'm doing right now. Rolling forward on the sitting bones and back. This is a movement at the hip socket where the pelvis rolls back and forth, and you can see that this is changing the shape that the spine takes. The vertebral column follows the movement of the hips. So in that same way, we can refresh our posture from the front of the pelvis, right? The sitting bones are very useful, but if we think about the pubic bone angling downward, what we notice is that brings the pelvis upright, and the spinal column grows up out of the pelvis into its greatest length. So place your hand on your chest, right across the sternum, and just feel the movement of the sternum. If you point the pubic bone upward, the sternum drops down. And then if we turn the pubic bones down toward the floor, the sternum rises up. It comes forward and broadens. So just notice that pubic bone. If it had a little laser light on it and we turn that toward the ceiling, you can feel the sinking of the sternum. And then if we turn that laser light of the pubic bones toward the floor, the sternum lifts forward and up and broadens. And then if you happen to be noticing by watching, or you can feel this on yourself, I think the sternum is the most easy thing that's really clear to feel. But your head is also moving. So here the head is in front of my spine. So my muscles of my neck and shoulders are holding my head up. Now my muscles are working as ligaments, which is not their job, and bones. They're taking over the job of the bones. When I point the pubic bones downward and the spine realigns through its natural curves, the head comes back over the bones, and now the bones are holding the weight of the head. And the ligaments are doing their attaching jobs, and the muscles are relaxing. So just play with that for a moment. Tip the pubic bones upward, feel the flexion of the spine. Tip the pubic bones downward, feel the unfolding of the spine into its greatest length. Now you could go too far and you would clearly feel extension or bending forward, right? So if you were trying to keep your head up, you would go into extension. If you didn't keep the head up here, you would go into a forward bend. So we're looking for the place where we feel our vertebral column, our torso, finding its greatest length. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you something to reference for your posture. Any point in the day, you can do a little postural refresh based on this anatomical understanding of the bony landmarks of the pelvis. So have fun with that, and I'll see you for a breathing practice. Namaste.